The storm arrived without warning, dark clouds swallowing the evening sky and unleashing a torrent of rain. The wind howled outside, bending trees and rattling windows as thunder rolled ominously, hinting at the storm's true strength. Inside, their warm two-story home, Elena and Marcus Turner moved around the kitchen, preparing dinner while their 5-year-old son Aiden played nearby. Elena glanced at the window, watching raindrops splatter against the glass. "Looks like it's going to be a rough night," she remarked, chopping vegetables. Marcus nodded, checking the oven. "The weather app says it'll get worse before midnight. Good thing we're all inside." In the living room, Aiden sat, cross-legged on the carpet, carefully arranging his toy cars. His face was scrunched in concentration as he made soft engine noises, a red fire truck gliding along an imaginary road. A sudden flash of lightning lit the room, followed by a crack of thunder that made Elena flinch. The lights flickered but stayed on. "Aiden, sweetheart, dinner will be ready soon," Elena called. But Aiden didn't respond. He had gone completely still, his toy car frozen mid-journey. His eyes were fixed on the front window, head tilted. Slightly, listening. "Aiden?" Elena tried again, noticing the shift in her son's demeanor. Slowly, Aiden stood up and approached the window, pressing his small palm against the glass. "Mom," he said softly, "there's something outside." Elena exchanged a glance with Marcus, unease creeping in. "What is it, honey? Did you see a raccoon again?" Aiden shook his head, eyes never leaving the window. "No, it's big." A faint scratching sound came from the front door, soft at first, then more urgent. It wasn't the wind or branches. It was deliberate, almost desperate. Marcus set down the oven mitts, his movements cautious. "Probably just a branch that fell," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. The scratching came again, followed by a soft whine. "Dad, open it," Aiden urged, tugging at his father's sleeve. "Someone needs help." After a moment's hesitation, Marcus moved towards the door. "Stand back, both of you," he instructed, turning the knob slowly. The door swung open, letting in a gust of cold wind and rain. But that wasn't what made Elena gasp. There, slumped on the doorstep, lay a massive German shepherd. Its dark fur was soaked and matted with mud, its body alarmingly thin. One side bore an angry red wound, crusted with dried blood. The dog's chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. It lifted its head just enough for its amber eyes to meet Marcus's, a look of unmistakable pleading. Elena instinctively pulled Aiden back. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice tight with worry. "Be careful." But the dog made no move to rise or growl. It only lay there, defeated and exhausted, eyes never leaving Marcus's face. "Dad, he's hurt," Aiden said, voice trembling with concern. He tried to wriggle free from Elena's grasp, but she held firm. "Aiden, stay back. We don't know." "This dog," Elena warned, her heart pounding. "It could be dangerous." But Aiden looked up at her, eyes earnest and far too wise for his age. "Mom," he said quietly. "He needs help." Marcus crouched cautiously, keeping a safe distance. The dog watched him with tired eyes, showing no signs of aggression, no growling, no bared teeth. Instead, it let out another soft whine, almost like a sigh of relief. "He has a collar," Marcus observed, leaning closer. "Let me see if there's a tag." The dog remained still as Marcus carefully reached for the worn leather strap. A small metal tag hung from it, barely legible. "Rex," Marcus read aloud. "That's his name." But any other information was too scratched and faded to make out. Rainwater pooled around the dog, mixing with drops of fresh blood. Rex shivered, eyes beginning to droop with exhaustion. "We can't just leave him out here," Aiden pleaded, his lower lip trembling. "He'll die, Daddy." Elena's fear wrestled with sympathy as she looked at the beaten-down creature on their doorstep. Taking in a strange, injured dog was a risk, especially with Aiden in the house. but leaving Rex out in the storm felt even worse. Marcus sighed, glancing between the raging storm and the wounded animal. "We can't leave him out here," he said, his voice resigned. "He's in bad shape." Elena hesitated. "Are you sure this is safe?" "No," Marcus admitted. "But I don't think we have a choice." With a deep breath, Marcus slid his arms carefully under Rex's body. The dog whimpered softly but didn't struggle, too weak to resist. Aiden rushed ahead, pulling his favorite blue blanket from the couch. "Put him here, Dad," Aiden called, eyes bright with determination. As Marcus laid Rex gently on the blanket, Aiden appeared with a bowl of water, setting it near the dog's head. Before either parent could stop him, he knelt beside Rex and reached out a small, tentative hand. "Aiden, careful," Elena warned, her heart in her throat. But Rex merely thumped his tail weakly against the blanket, his eyes soft and grateful. With a shaky breath, the dog stretched just enough to lick Aiden's fingers, a gesture of trust that brought tears to Elena's eyes. Aiden smiled softly, stroking the dog's damp fur. "It's okay, Rex," he whispered. "You're safe now." Marcus moved to call the vet. Elena couldn't help but watch the scene unfold, a strange sense of fate settling over her. The storm still raged outside, but inside, amidst the soft glow of the living room lights, a quiet peace had fallen. And as Rex's eyes fluttered closed, his head resting against Aiden's knee, it felt almost like he had finally found the place he was meant to be. Elena gently rested her hand on the dog's head, her eyes never leaving Aiden, who seemed completely at ease beside the injured animal. "I've never seen a child bond so quickly with a hurt animal," Dr. Roberts remarked, watching them closely. "Usually, there's some fear, on both sides." "They've been inseparable since we found him," Elena replied, still unable to fully comprehend the connection she was witnessing. Dr. Roberts smiled softly. "Animals can sense goodness in people, especially children. Their hearts are simpler, more honest." She glanced at her computer screen and frowned slightly. "That's odd. The chip is registered to a Henry Walker." Elena's breath caught. "Henry Walker from Pine Street, the older veteran?" Dr. Roberts nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, that's him. Poor man. Did you know him?" "Not well," Elena admitted. "I'd see him sometimes during my morning runs." "Well, that explains why the chip wasn't scanning properly," Dr. Roberts said. "It's at least 10 years old, one of the early models. Mr. Walker got Rex as a therapy dog after his wife passed." Marcus leaned forward, confusion evident on his face. "You're talking about him in the past tense." Dr. Roberts hesitated. "Oh, you hadn't heard? Henry passed away about 4 months ago. Heart attack, they think. He was found in his garden." The news hit Elena hard. If Rex had been Henry's dog, where had he been all this time? "But that doesn't make sense," Marcus echoed her thoughts. "If Mr. Walker died months ago, where has Rex been?" Dr. Roberts shrugged. "That's the mystery, isn't it? Dogs are incredibly loyal. Sometimes they stay near home, waiting for their owners to return." "Waiting," Elena murmured, recalling the German shepherd watching her from the woods. Rex had been waiting, guarding the last place he had seen his owner. "The sad man isn't coming back," Aiden said softly, as if confirming Elena's suspicions. "So Rex came to find a new family." Dr. Roberts smiled, though sadness lingered in her eyes. That might just be true. Dogs know when it's time to move on. After tending to Rex's wound, Dr. Roberts offered 2 options. Take Rex to the local shelter or foster him until a permanent home could be found. Before either Elena or Marcus could respond, Aiden spoke up firmly. "Rex is staying with us. He chose us." Elena exchanged a glance with Marcus, both of them hesitant. Taking in a dog, especially one as large as Rex, was a big responsibility. But the way Rex had found them, the immediate bond with Aiden, and the strange coincidence of him belonging to someone Elena used to see, it all felt significant. We can foster him, Elena heard herself say, just until he heals, and we find him a good home. Aiden's relief was immediate, but there was something else in his eyes, something that suggested he knew this was only the beginning. The drive home was quiet, each of them lost in thought. Rex lay across the back seat, his head on Aiden's lap, eyes drifting shut under the boy's gentle hand. "What do you think happened to him?" Marcus asked quietly. "Why leave the house after 4 months?" "I don't know," Elena admitted, a troubling thought forming. "Unless something scared him away." "You mean like whoever stabbed him?" Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Elena nodded, a chill running through her. "What if someone came to Henry's place, a squatter or a burglar? Rex might have tried to defend his home and got hurt." Marcus's jaw clenched, then ran to the nearest place he felt safe. "Our house." "But why us?" Elena wondered. "Why not any other house?" They both glanced back at Aiden, who had fallen asleep, with his arm draped protectively over Rex's neck. "Maybe it wasn't random," Marcus suggested. "You said you saw him during your runs. Maybe he recognized your scent." It was a reasonable explanation, yet Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Rex had chosen them for a reason. As they pulled into their driveway, Elena's heart skipped a beat. A police car was parked across the street, and Officer Taylor was approaching with a serious expression. Marcus got out to speak with him while Elena stayed in the car, her nerves on edge. After a brief conversation, Marcus returned, looking grim. "What happened?" Elena asked, anxiety creeping in. "Someone tried to break into the Petersons' house last night," Marcus said quietly. "Officer Taylor's checking with everyone on the street." "Did they catch the person?" Marcus shook his head. "No, but they found blood on the Petersons' back fence. Not much, but enough to suggest the intruder was injured." Elena's eyes widened as the pieces began to connect. "You don't think—" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But the timing's suspicious. Rex shows up hurt around the same time someone tries to break in 3 doors down." They both looked at Rex, the mysterious dog who had appeared in a storm, bearing a knife wound and secrets they didn't yet understand. "What do we do?" Elena whispered. Before Marcus could answer, Aiden stirred, eyes barely open. He smiled, sleepily at Rex. "Rex saved us," Aiden mumbled. "The bad man was coming, but Rex scared him away." A cold shiver ran down Elena's spine. How could Aiden possibly know about the attempted break-in while he was asleep? And why was he so certain that Rex had protected them, unless Rex hadn't been running from danger when he collapsed on their porch? Maybe he had been running toward it, and if that were true, what or who was the real threat? Marcus started to protest, but his words faltered when he saw Aiden nodding solemnly. "Rex was protecting the sad man's treasure," Aiden said, his voice soft but certain. All 3 adults exchanged confused glances before Elena knelt beside the boy. "What treasure, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Aiden leaned against Rex, his small hand buried in the dog's fur. "The sad man hid something. Important," he explained. "Rex was guarding it. But the bad man came with a knife, so Rex had to run away." A chill ran down Elena's spine. "Aiden, how do you know this?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "Rex showed me," Aiden said simply, "in my dreams." Dr. Roberts observed the boy and the dog with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Children are often more in tune with animals than adults," she remarked thoughtfully. "A well-trained dog like Rex might communicate through behavior, body language, even scent cues, ways we don't fully understand." Marcus raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident. "Are you suggesting Rex is actually telling Aiden things?" he asked. "Not in words," Dr. Roberts clarified, "but perhaps in ways Aiden can interpret." Elena wasn't sure what to believe, yet she couldn't deny the eerie accuracy of Aiden's account. especially given the connection to Henry. Walker, and now this strange talk of treasure and danger. We need to be careful, she murmured to Marcus once Dr. Roberts had left. If this Victor person is after Rex and was behind those break-in attempts... Marcus nodded grimly. I'll call Officer Taylor, he said. Let him know what we've discovered. That night, they took no chances. Every door and window was double-checked and locked. They left the outside lights on and set up a makeshift alarm system, a row of empty cans balanced on the windowsills. It was far from professional, but at least it would make noise if someone tried to get in. Despite these precautions, sleep proved elusive for Elena. Around midnight, she slipped out of bed to get a glass of water and paused by Aiden's room. The door was slightly ajar, and the soft glow of a nightlight spilled into the hallway. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Aiden's bed empty. "Aiden," she whispered, panic rising. She hurried inside, only to stop in relief. Aiden was there, sound asleep on the floor beside Rex's bed, his small body curled trustingly against the dog's side. Rex lifted his head at Elena's approach, eyes calm and watchful. "You're protecting him, aren't you?" Elena breathed. Rex's ears flicked forward at her words, and his tail gave a single, soft thump against the carpet, a quiet confirmation. Elena knelt beside them, fingers threading gently through Rex's fur. "What are you trying to tell us, boy?" she murmured. "What really happened at Henry's house?" Rex held her gaze for a moment, then rose carefully to his feet, moving so as not to disturb Aiden. He padded silently to the bedroom door, looking back at Eleanor with unmistakable intent. "You want me to follow you?" she asked, surprised. Rex trotted out into the hallway, pausing to glance back. Curious, and more than a little apprehensive, Elena followed him downstairs. He led her to the front window, placing his paws on the sill and peering out into the darkness, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Elena squinted into the night but saw nothing unusual. "What is it, Rex?" she whispered, but Rex had already moved on, heading toward the back door. He stood there glancing between Elena and the door, his posture insistent. "I can't let you out," Elena said softly. "It's not safe." Rex whined, his frustration clear. He paced back into the living room, grabbed his leash from the coffee table, and brought it to Elena, dropping it at her feet. The message was unmistakable. "Take me outside, now." Elena hesitated, torn between fear and the growing certainty that something was very wrong. "Wait here," she whispered, rushing upstairs to wake Marcus. Together they returned to find Rex sitting patiently by the door, the leash still in his mouth. "This is insane," Marcus muttered. But he clipped the leash to Rex's collar all the same. Armed with a flashlight and a baseball bat, they stepped into the chilly night. Rex pulled urgently on the leash, leading them down the street without hesitation. His path was direct and determined. After about 10 minutes, Elena realized where they were headed. "Marcus," she said, her voice tight with unease. "He's leading us to Henry Walker's house." They rounded a bend, and there it was. A small white house set back from the street, its windows dark and forlorn. Rex stopped at the edge of the property, his body taut with anticipation. Suddenly, a flashlight beam swept across the yard. Rex ducked low, pulling them behind an oak tree just as a tall, shadowed figure emerged from the side of the house. Someone was already inside. Before they could react, Rex lunged, pulling free from Marcus's grip and disappearing into the darkness. "Rex!" Elena hissed, her heart in her throat. But Rex was gone, a streak of shadow vanishing through the open door. Moments later, a snarl rang out, followed by a crash and a muffled shout. "Call 911!" Marcus barked, shoving his phone at Elena before sprinting after the dog. Elena's hands trembled as she dialed, her eyes locked on the dark silhouette of the house. She was still on the phone when Marcus and Rex burst back outside, running flat out. "Go, go!" Marcus shouted, his eyes wild. "Run!" They tore back down the street, the sound of pursuing footsteps thunderous behind them. Just as the police sirens wailed into the night, their pursuer halted, melting into the shadows. Safely home, they bolted the doors and sank onto the living room sofa, breaths ragged and hearts pounding. Rex paced restlessly, his eyes fixed on the windows, alert and unsettled. He was digging under the floorboards, Marcus said hoarsely once he caught his breath. In Henry's bedroom, Rex was trying to get to something. Elena exchanged a grim look with him. "The sad man's treasure," she whispered. By dawn, they were back at Henry's house, this time with Officer Taylor and Sandra Webb, the executor of Henry's estate. Rex led them unerringly to the bedroom, scratching at a spot by the bed. Officer Taylor pried up the floorboards, revealing a small metal box with a single keyhole. Inside were documents, a leather journal, and an old photograph of Henry in uniform. Sandra's eyes widened as she sifted through the papers. "These need to go to the authorities," she said firmly. Elena knelt beside Rex, wrapping her arms around him. "You did it, boy," she murmured, her voice thick with gratitude. "You protected Henry's secret." Rex's tail swished softly, but his eyes remained on Aiden, who watched with a small, knowing smile. Elena couldn't shake the thought of Aiden's insistence that Rex had spoken to him through dreams. As they walked home, Rex trotted happily beside Aiden, the danger from Victor neutralized, and the mystery of Henry's documents solved. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Whatever strange bond existed between her son and this remarkable dog, it had brought them together for a reason. Rex had come to them battered and desperate, carrying secrets and responsibilities far too heavy for one loyal heart alone. Yet, against all odds, he had found exactly the family he needed, a family that needed him just as much. That night, as Elena tucked Aiden into bed, she asked softly, "How did you know Rex was special right from the start?" Aiden yawned, his eyes drooping. "I just knew, Mom. He wasn't just any dog. He was our dog. He was always supposed to be ours." Elena smiled, brushing Aiden's hair back, and looked down at Rex. The German shepherd met her gaze with those intelligent, knowing eyes, and she realized Aiden was right. Some connections defied explanation. Some souls simply recognized each other. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new normal. Rex became a beloved part of their lives, accompanying Aiden to school, waiting patiently outside stores, with Elena and joining Marcus for evening jogs. Yet through it all, the bond between Rex and Aiden remained as mysterious and unbreakable as ever. Sometimes Elena would find them sitting together in silence, eyes locked as if sharing secrets only they could understand. When Sandra Webb invited them to a memorial service for Henry Walker, they readily agreed. It was held in a small chapel, surrounded by rows of white headstones. As they entered with Rex, a hush fell, and one by one, the veterans stood at attention. Not for Elena, Marcus, or Aiden, but for Rex. The sight brought tears to Elena's eyes. Sandra spoke of Henry's struggles after the war and how Rex had been his lifeline, keeping the darkness at bay. As she spoke, Elena noticed something astonishing, tears glistening in Rex's eyes. Grief was etched into his expression, an unmistakable mourning for his old friend. After the service, they visited Henry's grave. Rex approached slowly, sat beside the headstone, and gazed out over the cemetery, keeping watch one last time. Aiden whispered softly, "He's saying goodbye." They gave Rex all the time he needed. That evening, as they drove home, Rex rested his head on Aiden's lap, eyes heavy with exhaustion. By the time they arrived, it was clear something was wrong. His breathing was labored, eyes clouded with pain. Dr. Roberts confirmed their worst fears. Rex's heart was failing. All they could do was keep him comfortable and stay by his side as dawn broke. Aiden knelt beside Rex, stroking his head. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to fight anymore. The sad man is waiting for you." With a final soft breath, Rex was gone. Tears streamed down Aiden's face as he whispered, "Good boy, Rex." They buried him beneath the old oak tree in the backyard, Aiden placing a photo of Henry on the small grave. Weeks passed, the house feeling emptier without Rex's steady presence. Aiden was quieter, his newfound confidence dimmed by grief. Then one crisp November morning, Marcus spotted a flyer about an adoption event at the local shelter. Hesitant but hopeful, they decided to visit. Among the dogs was a small German shepherd puppy, the last of his litter. He was timid, holding back as if waiting for something. When Aiden approached, the puppy slowly crossed the room to press against him, eyes wide and trusting. "His name is Hero," Aiden said softly, with a certainty that left no room for argument. That night, as Hero settled beside Aiden's bed, Elena asked gently, "Do you think Hero will dream about Rex?" Aiden's eyes drifted closed, a small smile playing at his lips. "Maybe," he murmured. "Rex isn't really gone. He's just helping Hero now, teaching him how to protect us." Outside, the wind rustled through the oak tree's branches, a sound almost like a bark, faint but distinct. Elena glanced toward the window, heart full of gratitude and sorrow intertwined. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes on the stars. Somewhere, in the distance, she could almost swear she heard an answering bark, a guardian's promise that some protectors never truly leave. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.